Good evening, everyone. It is Saturday night and the last night on the road for me for a little while. Not very long. A couple of weeks, I'll be back out on the road again. But I am just south of Louisville, Kentucky, in a really nice RV park that Beverly and I have used a number of times as we travel this direction. Um, and so thought I'd pull into the campground tonight and spend the night, get everything all cleaned up and cleaned out, dump the tanks, all that good fun stuff that goes along with camping. But like I say, this is the final night on the road. Tomorrow, it's only about a 4.5 or so hour drive home. So I'm not sure if I'm going to try to get up here in the morning early and leave out and try to get to church by 11 o'clock, because I would love to see all my friends at church. Um, or if I'm going to sit here and watch church on the internet and then pull out. But at any rate, sometime tomorrow, I will be back at the house. Uh, I'm looking forward to being home. I have to admit, I have spent, other than a few hotel nights, some 80 days or so on the road. I had 11 days with my sister, so those didn't count as far as staying in the camper. And about I guess it was 11 nights or so in hotels, counting the trip to Hawaii and the trip, the hotel stay around the wedding and such as that. So from that standpoint, yeah, it's going to kind of be nice to spread out again, to walk from room to room, to get things rather than just turning around and opening a cabinet and getting something. So I'll get a little more exercise, I guess, when I get home. And I've got obviously plenty of things to do when I get home. So, and after leaving the tractor show today, it's quite obvious to me that I've got to get busy working on tractors again. I have several that need work, and I'm going to try to get all my tractors up and running. I got some news from my nephew today that one of them he's already got running, and that's just fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that tractor run. So anyway, I had mentioned that I was going to kind of do a little summary of the trip, and I thought tonight is as good a night as any to do that. It's cool enough that I can sit here in the camper without the air conditioner on to block the noise, and just kind of run through some thoughts in my mind of some of the things. So, and some of this stuff is predicated on what I know is going to be the mileage, etc., to get home. So I had promised or mentioned that I was going to do this. So let me just go ahead and run through a few things right quick. By the time I get home, I will have traveled, not counting the ferry miles and the airplane miles and the rental car miles, 15,530 miles, give or take. I will have traveled through 21 states, 2 Canadian provinces, 1 Canadian territory. I will have walked in 10 state capitals. So those state capitals were New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Phoenix, Arizona, Sacramento, California, Honolulu, Hawaii, Carson City, Nevada, Boise, Idaho, Salem, Oregon, Olympia, Washington, and Juneau, Alaska. I did do one other walk, and Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Madison, Wisconsin. I did do one other walk in Alaska there at Skagway, and some of you may have looked at that video. So I've got more walking in than than sometimes I felt like doing, but I got them in anyway. And the toughest of all, no doubt, was Juneau, Alaska. I think probably the most scenic of all was probably Salem, and the most historical, I believe, would have been Santa Fe. So great walks. I got to attend 2 tractor shows, one in Manhattan, Illinois, and the one I just left in Napanee, Indiana, where we were celebrating the 90th anniversary of the Model A and Model B John Deere tractors, along with lots of other tractors. I got to see some really neat demonstrations. Some of those you've seen on the videos, or may see on the videos, and so I had a wonderful night there. All told, I think I mentioned it, but I'm going to go through it again. All told, I've been on the road now for 80 days. I will have by the time I leave here tomorrow. So 80 nights on the road, and then tomorrow. Out of those 80 nights, I did 10 nights in the hotels, and those were strictly surrounding the wedding, the hotel before we left for Hawaii, the hotel in Hawaii, and the hotel after we got back from Hawaii. Other than that, I did not stay in any hotels. Oh, I take that back. I did stay at Tunica because that was a free night. You got to take those free ones when you get them, folks. I had 28 nights that was in either Harvest Host, Boondockers Welcome, or other free camping opportunities. And I'll go through some of those. I paid for camping at 31 camping nights. Most of those were due to either needing power, needing to empty my tanks, or in the case of when I got to Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, it had got so dead burned hot that I just could not survive without air conditioning. I'm sorry, I'm not a roughing it camper like I used to be. I would be tough it'd be tough for me to try to camp in a tent. In fact, a tent may be cooler than this box. You know, when you think about this box I sit in, it's about 4.5 feet wide at the bottom where I walk around. The other slides out to the side, so a total of about 8 feet by 8 feet. So, and it does hold heat. So anyway, enough of that. I wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the Harvest Host and Boondocker Welcome memories that I had. You know, that's one thing about this type of travel. I wish I could have stayed every night in a Boondockers Welcome or a Harvest Host site, because it was just great meeting people, hearing their stories, seeing the products that they had available that I could purchase from them. It was, and just hear about how they do things. It was just phenomenal for me. And like I say, had it not gotten so hot, and had I not on some nights needed to be able to dump my tanks, I would have probably stayed in more of them. And I look forward to more stays like that. And I want to run through a few of them. My first night, that was the first time I experienced Harvest Host. It was a gentleman's house, or his farm, called Triple L Farms, I believe it was. And he showed me where to park, which was down in the pasture. I was away from everything. They had this one old bull around and some goats, and I got to meet the goats and the dogs, and he had 2 wonderful little children out there, and I got to meet them. And that was the first night out, and I had a steak I needed to cook, and so I grilled up steak, and this one big dog he had was just sitting there with his, just drooling. And so I called the gentleman and I said, would it be okay if I gave your dog this steak bone? It was off a T-bone steak. And he said, absolutely. So I got to sit and enjoy him enjoying that. That was a really nice day, and particularly because it was my first one, and I got to experience that. He had just had a tornado a few months back come through there, so he didn't have anything available to sell. So I told him, I said, well, here, just take this $30, which was the expected expenditure at each Harvest Host place, and put it on chainsaw fuel. You got more trees here you got to cut up. The next day I had that comes to mind is the Humming Desert Alpaca Ranch. That was a wonderful place to stay. It was a gorgeous view from up at their place high on the hill, looking out over the deserts there in New Mexico, just south of Santa Fe. And when I got in there and parked, the lady that runs the ranch and greeted me, showed me the best place that I could park, and then invited me on a tour to meet all the alpacas, including, and I think I mentioned the video, some of you may not have seen that one, including I believe it was I'm drawing a blank, but I believe it was a 3-day-old alpaca. But got to meet all the alpacas without their fur because they'd just been sheared. And then she had some alpaca products, which I tell you, I bought a pair of socks, and they are great for walking. I don't know how I'm going to deal with keeping them clean every time I want to go walking, but they were great for walking, and I've got another heavy pair when it gets a really cold winter. Museums, I stayed at 3 museums, and when you stay at a museum, the thing they ask you to do is just, give them a donation towards your museum. The first was the Texas Panhandle, and I believe it was Amarillo, Texas Panhandle War Museum. I got to tour the museum and stayed in their parking lot. The only trouble there was a potential storm that night, and I didn't know how I was going to handle that. I went to sleep and didn't even notice the storm if it came through. The next one was I think it's spelled Coalinga, California. Used to be the site of a lot of oil production and such as that. Factory there that made a lot of oil drilling products. And so they had set aside this one place for a museum. It was a great visit. He took me on a tour of the museum the next morning, and a really nice place to park there in their parking lot, and got to see some interesting stuff. And I said, well, that building over there got some tractors in it. He said, well, that's not really part of the museum, but if you'd like to go look at them, we can. So I saw 1 or 2 unique tractors in there that I hadn't seen before, and unfortunately he didn't know much about them. But I got to see them anyway. And then the third was the Great Oregon Steam Up showgrounds, where they do a lot of steam tractor demonstrations, along with many others. I think you've seen the video. I put it up. I hope you have seen it. And that was just a great visit. And he had really piqued my interest about going back out there, but unfortunately that show is about 2 weeks away. I don't think I'm going to get back out there for that big show. It's a 2-week show, and they have all sorts of steam tractors, along with many other antique tractors and unique items. One building dedicated to fire trucks, 2 buildings dedicated to antique trucks, 1 area dedicated to logging, and the different products they use in logging, and just a fabulous visit. So I had those 3 great museums. Another Harvest Host that comes to mind is Many Oaks Farms. That's the ones where I showed you the video of their lavender fields. They took me on a tour of the lavender, how they process it, how they grow it, how they harvest it, and the lavender was in bloom. And I tell you, that was really a nice trip. I learned a lot about lavender from that, and one of my favorite essential oils, as a matter of fact, is lavender. And not only do they raise lavender, but they raise veggies as well. So I left there with some garlic, some eggs, some raspberries, and and quite a few lavender products that I purchased from them to take along the way. Two of the lavender products were, well, one of the lavender products, I got two of them, was the sachets, which really helped the old camper to smell a little bit better. Another one I can remember that I really enjoyed was the Blown Away Ranch in Oregon. We were parked on top of a hill, just a gorgeous view down through across the valleys and across the desert there. And the only downside to that was the windmills go whoop, 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 but other than that, it was a great visit. And I loved the way she did things. She had a number of products selected for sale. They were in a little greenhouse area, and each product was marked with a price, and you were welcome to go in, pick what you wanted on the honor system, and just drop the cash in a box. I was able to leave there with some breakfast tacos or breakfast burritos, frozen burritos, honey buns, not honey buns, but cinnamon rolls, and a hat. And let me talk about my hats a minute. I'm going to show you that hat. That's the hat from Blown Away Ranch. Some of you know I like hats, and I do buy them most every place I go. So I'll run through my hats right quick, then I'll finish this up. Got a nice one from the Yukon, north of ordinary, they say. And it's kind of a John Deere color hat, so I had to get that one. And of course, my hat from I got to read it, White Pass and Yukon Railway route. The little railroad trip I took, they were selling the hats, and of course I had to have one of those. And then the one I've got on from my trip on the Alaskan Fjord. How I bought that one, I probably would have bought it anyway, but I bought it out of necessity because my veteran's hat that I had on went flying out in the bay somewhere, so it's washed up on the creek somewhere. And then one of my, I thought kind of the most unique and favorite ones here is the John Moose hat. And I wore that yesterday at the tractor show. It looks like a John Deere hat. All of the style and everything is John Deere hat. And I just wondered how many people would pay attention. And most people just kind of ignored it, just thought I had a John Deere hat on. So anyway, I got a good selection of hats and a few other special things I brought home along the way. Let's see. Back to the Boondockers Welcome Harvest Toast. And I'm sure I'm not pronouncing this right. M-A-O-Z, Mao's Homestead. This was the last place I stayed before going into Canada. Really nice place. They had a beautiful home sitting up on a hillside. You looked off down the mountain. They had me park right in front of his shop where I could plug in the power. Great couple. He was a former customs agent or customs worker of some sort. And so I was hoping to get a few tips from him, but I failed to ask those questions. But yeah, I told him I was a little bit nervous about crossing that border the first time. And he was just, maybe 5 miles south of the border. But one of the unique things they had was a peacock. I enjoyed watching that peacock strut around, and the lady was, and I apologize to all you folks because I met so many people I don't always remember your names, and I'm sure they signed on to as a subscriber. So, but she would coach that peacock into spreading his tail feathers, and it was just amazing to watch him. Those things make some noise. They screech. The next place I stopped, first place in Canada, was Ravens Bay. There's a couple there that have a beautiful home on a gorgeous lake, big trout fishing lake as a matter of fact. And he was concerned about the weather that it might be raining. So instead of parking where he would normally park, folks, he asked me to back up to his lean-to, and where my steps and my door would be undercover should I have to get out of the camper. I wouldn't get out in the rain. Not only that, but he unhooked his travel trailer from power so that he could plug mine in to power. And the next morning he took me on a little tour down by the house and down to the lake and told me a lot about his history. I think he was originally from Germany, and told me a little about his history and how they came to be there at the lake. It was really a nice visit. The next place I stopped in was Burns Lake. It wasn't a Harvest Host or Boondockers Welcome, but it was a really pretty site to park. It's a city park right on the Burns Lake. With no amenities, just a place to park, a good safe place to park, and a gorgeous view. And I appreciate Burns Lake community for making that available. And then of course some of you saw the video where I just boondocked on the road in Haines, Alaska. The gentleman at the visitor center, when I asked about a campground, he said, "Well, you want a boondock?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, just go down and find you, pull off by the road, and wherever you like the view, and pull in there and park for the night." And I had a great site. Got some video of the sunsets, and it's just really pretty night. I had hoped to be able to see the Northern Lights, because my sister had said that they may be visible, but they were not. Another place that I really enjoyed and appreciate those folks is a place called Sundog Haven. It was out of Tok, Alaska. Tok, Alaska, I think it is. I always want to call it Tok. And I had a little trouble finding them. Not because of their problem, but they had given me some good directions on the video. I mean, on the text to me, but my phone lost signal, and I hadn't saved it off. I learned something from that one, is when they send you a text, copy it and paste it in the notepad or something like that, so you can see it. But I hunted all around and hunted all around. Finally, I found them after stopping at 2 houses before I found them. We didn't get to visit very long because the mosquitoes was out and biting all of us. Very interesting couple. They actually winter down in the States. I believe down around Florida or South Alabama and down in that area. So I understand why. But they have a really pretty homestead there. Really nice place. And the next one I'll talk about is a place called Deep Creek. It's in Nilchik, Alaska, down near Homer. This lady bought this property, and she wasn't even on the property. She was working up at, I forget, some state park, and she had, Denali, that's where she was working, in Denali. And she had when they bought this property, she and her church group did a walking tour of the property, what they called a prayer walk, and dedicated this property to helping others. She had a grill on site if you needed to use it. She had a fire pit and some firewood if you needed it. She had made a note in her text that she sent to me that there was a chainsaw in the shed if we needed more wood. I didn't burn any wood, but some of my neighbors did. And but she had 5 marked off sites, told you exactly where to be and what number of sites you'd be in. And so when I pulled in and backed into my site, the back door just looked off down a great big ravine. Down the bottom of the ravine was what they call Deep Creek. Across the creek was a eagle's nest. There were several eagles that flew around that area. Our neighbors wound up seeing a moose come through the property. I didn't get to see him. I was down in Homer at that time, and this was close to Homer, and about 2/3 of the way, I guess, between Anchorage and Homer. And I really appreciate that lady. I will have to say that it was probably the most peaceful stay. And I just found a total peace when I was sitting there. The one gentleman had kind of parked a little bit over on my side, and normally I would just be a old curmudgeon and say, no, you got to move. You can't be on my side. And I just said, well, that's okay. We all got room here. We'll just share it. It was just so peaceful. The IGA store in Fort Nelson, BC, offered their parking lot available to folks wanting to overnight there. And he told me I could park up beside the building there. And I said, well, you got some power outlets there along the building. Would that be a real problem if I plugged in so I could upload some videos and stuff? And he said, no, that'd be okay. So I was able to utilize their power to get some videos uploaded instead of running the generator. And of course I had to go in and replenish my groceries. That's something that Beverly and I always did when we were boondocking in Walmarts or wherever, or restaurants, Cracker Barrel or whatever. We always made it a point to buy some groceries or some necessities of some sort, and eat a meal if they served meal. Next place I can remember was in, I think they pronounce it Zinzen, Alberta. The D&D Kimball Farms, farmer, he had leased his property out, and he had a beautiful campsite there that where an old, it was an old mobile home site that he had pulled a mobile home out, which left power, water, and sewer available to the boondockers. I think he charged me maybe $5 for power. I don't remember. It was negligible. A really nice site off to myself. The only thing I had to be careful about was the cat. He had a cat that he said if you leave the door open, he's gonna come visit you. So I made it a point not to leave the door open. But really nice spot. He and I had a nice long conversation about farming, and talked about our dads and our farming adventures. And he was also surrounded by canola fields, and I think that's right. Yeah, canola oil. And they were all in bloom. Well, these beautiful yellow blooms out there on the canola plants. That was really pretty, very pretty. And then I come to Dan's Custom Sausage. He was in a place called Ponoka, yeah, I think it is Ponoka, Alberta. I stayed at his place so I could go to the Reynolds Alberta Museum. He was just right down the road from there. I'm going to have to say, he is high on my list. It's between him and one or two others as to my favorite places I have to park. Once I got in and got parked, he parked me down by his sausage shop and where I could hook up the power, and I hadn't much more than got set up. I'd got my Starlink set up. I was going to do some videos, uploads, and he and his wife came to the back of the camper and invited me up to the house to join him and his wife and another couple that was camping up by the house on the patio for drinks. And while I don't drink very often, very, very rarely, I did enjoy the company. And he and his wife were both from Switzerland. And I told her, I said, of all the Harvest Host places I've stayed, you're the first that's given me a hug. She wasn't no shaking hands. It was a hug. And I said, nobody else has hugged me, so I thank you. And so we stayed there and visited with them for, well, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half. I don't really remember how long. The couple that was parked next to them was a couple that had stayed there before, and they developed such a friendship and kept close contact that they then, they were up there for a rodeo thing, and so they were just staying there beside the house. And they were from Florida. And so it was really great meeting, great visit. And then the next morning, when Dan opened up his sausage shop, and I had to go load up. Now, I would have filled my freezer up. Unfortunately, it's not very big, but I would have completely filled it up with his sausages and his smoked pork chops, bacon. But that day I was heading across the border, or the next day I was going to be heading across the border, and I thought, oh, what if the border agents don't let me take this through? So I made it a point to call them before I tried to cross the border, by the way, because if they wasn't going to let me take it through, they were not going to throw that away. I was either going to back up and start cooking, or I was going to find somebody to give it to. So, but they did let me through with it. And his sausage, his smoked sausage, was fabulous. His smoked pork chops they were like half to 3/4 inch thick, great big smoked pork chops, and they were just wonderful. Along with that, I was able to get some bacon and some sausage rolls. The sausage rolls really were nice because I could pop about 4 or 5 of them in a pan in the oven and have instant breakfast. On the mornings, I didn't want to cook breakfast, so that was really nice. So thank you guys for if you're watching this video. Thank you so much for your hospitality and the great smoked meats that you had there. I would almost drive back up there and just get some more. I'll be honest with you. And then I have to talk about my stay at Banff. I had driven through Banff, as you saw the videos, intending just to kind of look around a little bit, get some videos, and go out to the ice fields near Jasper, and then come back through and head on south. Well, the drive was so slow and took me so long, I just had to find a place to camp for the night. I kept going into campgrounds and looking and seeing no spaces available. I pulled into one that I said on the video I'd never stay there because it's named Mosquito Creek, but I pulled into there hoping to find a vacant spot, and drove around the campsite, could not find one, and this really, really wonderful young couple from Minnesota told me, said, here, we'll make room for you. You just back in here beside us with just this one small tent and a car. We'll move the car over to the side. And so I backed in there, and some of y'all saw the video the next morning of that beautiful sight. So thank you, guys. I don't know what I'd have done without you, because if I had not had that campsite that night, I'm not sure I would have even made it out of the park without falling asleep. So anyway, I appreciate it. I know they signed on to as subscribers, and they've even shared a comment or two with me. And so thank you very much. You made my night that night, I guarantee you. So there were other places I stayed. I stayed at a place in Paso Robles, California, that raised hemp products, raised hemp and made hemp products. Really nice stay. I bought some salve from them, had to mail it home because I knew they wouldn't let me in Canada with it, and I wasn't going to try to hide it, so I mailed it home. Mailed one to me and one to my niece, and she says it works wonders. So I'm looking forward to using that at home on those